We start the series with the 1971 film If Your Footmen Tire, What Will Horses Do? A film as confusing as the title would lead you to believe, based on a book by Eustace W. Prickell and directed by Ron Ormond, a vaudeville magician turned B-movie director. The film is narrated by Eustace himself, who claims in his opening dialogue he can support all the statements he makes in the film with documented proof, and then begins his unnerving, stone-faced on-camera narration. Here we see the first of many confusing choices made in this film. Eustace, talking to the camera, is shown in front of a congregation. The eyeline of the audience suggests he is standing camera left, but as he talks, his eyeline is dead center, something made all the more unsettling by... There are a lot of quick cuts to dead bodies in this film. I think this scene, Eustace is telling us that these are the Babylonian soldiers who, according to him, enslaved Christians, and that is what's going to happen when the communists take over. This is also the only part of the movie I would describe as filmically interesting, as ambitious filmmakers don't often make for ambitious editors. At this point we are 3 minutes in, and we have already had graphic depictions of dead bodies, fear-mongering claims, and yet what I found the most interesting...
And unless we have some rapid changes in our country, our easygoing life of 40 hours a week workload and 2 or 3 weeks of paid vacation a year will soon be over.
Easygoing 40-hour a week? 2 or 3 holidays? Is that me, or does that just sound wrong?
You'll work until 8 o'clock at night.
And let's also stop for a minute here to appreciate the fact that Eustace is a Baptist minister. I don't think any Baptist minister anywhere has ever put in 40-hour work weeks. Anyway, dead children. There's an odd Henry Darger-esque idea of how the kids are all being killed because they refuse to reject Christ. And let's be honest here, that's both ridiculous and intense enough to be interesting as a central plot. But that's not what it is. It's not even the framing device for the central plot. This is.
Pick me up after services, you hear? Keep telling you I've got to keep up my image. You know, be seen in the proper places.
I'll be here, baby.
Sure you don't want to come in?
Not on your life, baby. I'm a lover, not a Christian.
Eustace is both the narrator and the main character. The communists are the antagonists and the villains, so this girl is the moral center. And not only has his line of sight changed again, he's looking over the heads of his congregation. And he's also babbling on about the footmen. He hasn't told us what the footmen are. Through context, you can gather the footmen are the sinners, those who destroy Christian values, but that's not necessarily exclusively communist. So he's bouncing around from topic to topic, shifting blame from ideologies destroying Christianities to girls in short skirts making a mockery of God. For some reason, we then flash back to the 1900s to talk about a simpler time where there was only one book in school, something called the McGuffey Reader. Now, you'd think he'd be going off on a tangent here about how books are evil because they inspire the ideas of thought and research and opening up new ways of thinking, but no.
Boys and girls, as I have discussed with you many times before, I personally believe that premarital sex is necessary. And now, we will go on to discuss the 7 erotic zones of passion in every woman. The first one is...
And they go on to teach
7 erotic zones. That is the cut the movie makes. I didn't do that for comic effect. I don't think anyone involved in this production knew one erogenous zone, let alone 7. I'm not even sure I know all 7, and I'm a sinner. And we don't even stay with that for this long. We jump from another evil to TV.
Into murder. Since the advent of TV, the crime rate in some areas has increased 1,000%.
Now, I like to think people have researched the claims they make. I like to think they find proof that supports their arguments. But I don't have to pull up crime statistics from the 70s Mississippi to prove what horseshit this claim is, do I? Then, Eustace makes another insane claim. Watching TV will stop you from reading the Bible. Even though this scene clearly depicts a much better relationship once this guy puts the Bible down and starts doing something with his son, as opposed to sitting there in abject silence looking at a book. And there's another profile change. Eustace has a go at dancing, driving movies, fornicators, marijuana.
To adultery. The thing that started on the dance floor is expected to be finished in a parked car or a motel somewhere.
And at 50 minutes in, we get another new plot device. A reportage, an on-screen reporter, telling us that the communists have invaded. Which sounds like where the plot's going to begin for this movie, but...
And it will be the end of your freedom. for the rest of your days.
We're back
All of
to
your
Eustace
activities will be
telling us
controlled by
what's what,
submachine guns,
contradicting himself,
hands of
as
men
he
who've
now
been
tells
taught
us that the
hate
communist killing
Let
machine
you
who were
obey
gunning
their
down
every
kids in
command.
the streets
They'll
a
do
few
more
scenes
than
ago
guard you.
are now just gonna brainwash and
They'll
kidnap
kill
them
you.
instead. 18 minutes in is my favourite scene of this movie. And the communist leader, who we have no establishing of how he came to power or who he is, tells this communist class of kids to pray to Jesus and ask for candy, which they do.
And produce America. I don't see any candy. I don't taste any candy. There is no candy. Your Jesus didn't bring us any candy. The reason why, your Jesus Christ can't do it.
He tells them to pray to Castro, and guess what? All the candy they can eat appears. Brilliant. Totally infallible, although it is also completely fallible, because once the kids want something else, like they pray to Castro for mountain bikes and none appear, then they can use the same argument to prove that Castro doesn't exist, which I'm pretty sure he did. In another tangent, Eustace, who tells us that he believes kids should be forced to work, shouldn't be forced to work into the night, as the communists will have them do in this scene, which you might very well notice is in the day. Film nights are expensive, people.
Everybody, over here.
22 minutes in, we have some pretty graphic stuff coming our way. A communist soldier finds a not well at all hidden outdoor church.
All right, right.
He punishes the people for talking about God, puncturing the eardrums of the people who've heard the sermon. If what's on screen wasn't graphic enough, we overdub some adult puking sounds to really drive home the point. Were these people just going about their daily lives under communist rule? Is this the first part of the communist invasion? Men in suits just strolling around? This scene where a drunk communist invites himself into a house to have sex with this lady is confusing enough, but in the context of what this film is, did they know the communists had taken over? Was the husband just expecting someone else knocking on the door and finds a drunk man in a nice army suit walking in and telling him he's going to have sex with his wife?
Comrade, just as well as visit.
Now, wait just a minute.
Come have a drink of vodka.
Were the communists already in control? Is this just some drunk man off the streets in a communist uniform?
You have a very beautiful wife.
You have no right to come busting into another man's house like this.
But I have every right. This house don't belong to you. It belongs to the state.
Your religious
The scenes
beliefs
seem to depict
and the
what
amount
life will
of
be like
money
under
you
communist
have
rule.
made and given to the church.
Mister, can I ask you a question, please?
It is your prerogative to ask.
If a person is not a, how do you say, a capitalist or a Christian, does he still have to write?
You write non-Christian, non-capitalist, and the questionnaire is complete.
Tommy, you wouldn't. You wouldn't deny what all Christ has meant to this family?
Sis, tell Mother, I know I'm a Christian, but God will forgive me if I lie about it just this once.
Tommy,
Tommy,
the dude is
tell them
sitting
the
right
truth.
next
Tell
to
them
you.
that you are.
I believe you. Now let me review the facts. You say that you are not a Christian. Your mother says that she is. Take my gun. Shoot her.
I couldn't
This
shoot her.
rambling montage of clips is confusing and sad enough, but then it's tail-ended by a torture montage, including a bizarre salt torture, which I actually had to look up online. I had to type in salt torture into Google, and I didn't find anything. This is just from the imaginations of Eustace. The last torture is the least graphic, but the most confusing. It depicts how people will be forced to sit on communist benches and listen to people preach the values of the new system in place. So basically it's church without the singing. Amongst all this insanity, I want to pause for a second and talk about this scene. I've watched this movie twice now and made notes and cut it up to do this video. I've scripted stuff to say over it apart from this. This scene, man, how wrong is this? The whole device of using the congregation to listen to Eustace's preaching is one thing, but the idea that someone is so invested in what he's saying and he believes these things are going to happen, it touches him so deep inside, emotionally, it hurts him. I mean, fuck this Eustace guy, right? A few scenes ago, it's torture porn, and now it's this. My only hope is that he cut this away from something else to use here, because this is so wrong. How would someone be so moved by the fear that will come with a communist invasion that they're moved to tears? Wow, fuck this guy. After this unfortunate and out-of-place scene, we go back to the girl story, so we're in flashback away from the main story, which is just a front-facing narration, but also separate from the constant cut-tos of extreme violence and torture, which is in itself an issue that I'm too tired to address. But at least this story has something. I understand what's happening with the girl now. The mother wants her to turn to God. She says, well, she'll get around to it. She's got things on. Eustace tells us then that we all need to turn to God. We need to go to church more, not just her. He shows us all the things that are happening in church, and then we cut back to whoever this lady is, remembering how her mother literally died because her daughter didn't believe in God. It hurt her that much, she had a heart attack and died. And however you feel about this movie, at least this is a narration. At least this is a point A and a point B leading to a very clear point C. But it's a point C I can hold out for amidst all this confusing cut-tos. Speaking of, I don't understand this scene at all. This is a church service letting out. There's a communist on patrol. He walks up to the preacher man and says if anyone's been saved today. The preacher man says, yeah, this nice young couple here. And then the communist has those nice young people killed. Have the communists already taken over? Did the people at this church not watch the news where we were told the communists had taken over? At least the guy out in the field there was trying to do his church stuff on the down low. These people are still going to church. Did you not at least think to go out the back door? Did you not want to have church somewhere quieter? And then just to turn over these poor young people to the communists. What is wrong with you? I thought going into this was going to be like a Red Dawn kind of deal, where it was about the Christians secretly going about their business overthrowing the communists, but it's more of a Matrix thing, and I don't understand what pill it is anyone has taken. There's no grasp of what's real anymore. Speaking of the realms of the unreal, before I mentioned the Henry Darger-esque stuff about all the children fighting for Jesus, this scene is even more Darger-esque. This kid has been told he has to step in a picture of Jesus or else, and he refuses, and the communist reaction is a bit strong.
One day you died for me, and I'm willing to die for you.
Why, you stupid little fool!
Yeah.
I know that this tragedy shocks you, Judy.
Judy, now she has a name. 50 minutes in, she has a name. Okay, sure, fine.
How often your mother...
As things are wrapping up, can I just say, how creepy is this Eustace fella? The way he carries himself, the way he doesn't look at anyone, the tight grip of his jaw as he spits out his monotone terrors. He plays the character of himself, the way in which any actor now would portray a sociopath. He's so creepy. If there was a red tint on the backlight, he'd be positively satanic. The lack of plot and direction aside, I don't know how anyone was meant to be inspired to come to Jesus with this guy holding the door open. He comes across as someone that tests faith. He doesn't inspire it. He's the snake with the apple. No one would be inspired by this film. At the time, they would be afraid. They would hate communists if they believed it. But does hate lead to devotion? The only way you can defend this film is that it was made in a very different time. Which is no excuse, it's just an explanation of how such a bizarre, frightening thing could have been put on film in the first place. How Christian films changed since then is something we're going to look at going forward, but right now the bar has been set very low.
It's wonderful. All right, let's thank him together. Father, thank
So
you
that's
for
the end of the
saving
first
us.
video essay.
Thank you
Going
that
forward,
you-
we'll move away from outright propaganda like this, and we'll start looking at Christian cinema, which is an underlying propaganda, which may be even more dangerous. Join me then. Like, comment, subscribe, yada yada. Or don't. Whatever.
You too might have a need for Jesus to come into your life. Or perhaps you might need more information. If so, please write me. Estes Perkle, New Albany, Mississippi. But right now, this very moment, wouldn't you like to receive Jesus as your own personal Savior? Will you get up and come to the altar? This could be the most important decision of your lifetime. Will you come? Will you come? Will you come?
Why, you stupid little fool!